This is PNC Roundtable.
Hello, this is Ric DeVore, Regional President for PNC Bank, and thank you for listening to PNC Roundtable. It's on this show that we tackle some of the region's tough issues with people who make a difference.
Now here's the PNC Roundtable.
Welcome into our PNC Roundtable. Hi, this is your morning man, Paul W. Smith, usually with you Monday through Friday from 5:30 till 9. Proudly with you here on the PNC Roundtable with my co-host, Regional President Ric DeVore. It's a great time of year, isn't it, Ric?
Oh, it really is, and there's a lot of great things going on, and this guest is a good example of that and what we're going to be talking about today, Bob Burry.
Yep, this guest is Bob Burry, and Bob is the Executive Director and CEO of the Detroit Historical Society, and there's been a whole bunch of good news surrounding your Detroit Historical Society, and I might add, Bob, a lot of work. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Paul, and I appreciate those nice compliments. And you know, it is a lot of work, and it is so gratifying though to see after 10 years or so of planning and thinking about it and fundraising and all the pre-work that needs to be done that the museum is now just on the verge or just reopening with so many new attractions. I think it's really going to be an enlightening experience for many people.
From the moment you stepped in your job in April of 2002, you've been working on coming to this, and it's got to make you feel good that it's all come together so well.
Well, you know, Paul, we kind of looked at the Detroit Historical Museum, and that's one of our 3 locations. And the reality is, as I like to say, it was a Tier C player. Now it's a Tier A player. You know, like so many things in Detroit, little fixing up here and fixing up there isn't going to do it. Incremental change was not the solution to make the Detroit Historical Museum something we can all be proud of, inspired by, learn from, etc. And so we're really excited that we jumped in with both feet and got a great result.
As a regional president of PNC, Ric DeVore, and I welcome in Robert Burry, Executive Director and CEO of the Detroit Historical Society. I think we really should start at the beginning, and that is to tell us a bit about the society, what the organization does, how long it's been around, where you're located, things that we take for granted that we shouldn't.
Well, you know, the Detroit Historical Society is one of those places that has been around since 1921. And it was actually the first historical museum was in the Cadillac Tower, one of the tall buildings downtown. But what we have responsibility for through a long-term agreement with the city is running the Detroit Historical Museum that is reopening, the Dawson Great Lakes Museum on Belle Isle, which is another great maritime attraction. And the part that a lot of people don't see is we have a tremendous collection of 250,000 rare and historic artifacts, from boats to cars to costumes to Native American artifacts that are in storage that we have to take care of as well.
And Ric, this is right up your alley. With it, in fact, again, within the DNA of PNC in becoming involved and helping behind the scenes and in the forefront like this, organizations like the Detroit Historical Society.
Oh, it really is. And, you know, when you think about, you're asking about locations, the primary location is a great one. Obviously, right there in Museum Row, as I call it, right over by the DIA and other great treasures. And, you know, as somebody that grew up in this region, and the fact that they're the keeper of a lot of the history, it's really exciting. You know, we all can trace our roots back to whether it's Sanders. We had a debate earlier, Sanders. I think it's Sanders, right?
I have the same debate, Sanders.
And just all the things that we grew up with and the fact that they help preserve that history, I think is really important. And the Maritime Museum is something I think sometimes people forget about, Bob, that it's out there, it's important. Obviously, our heritage on the lakes here.
Something we should think about more than we did just in the not-too-distant past with the sad wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's when it comes to mind. That's when we think about some of the things that are going on there. But it is there all the time for us. And when you mentioned growing up around here, Ric, and you can walk the city streets. The city streets of Detroit are recreated there at the museum itself. It's fabulous.
Well, that's right, Paul. You know, and when we started this project, one of the first things people said is, don't mess around with the streets of old Detroit. and so we didn't. We improved them a bit, but you'll still have that experience. And we mentioned Sanders earlier. We added a Sanders store. So it'll have a new attraction, a new fresh look. And so the streets, for the most part, will stay the same. But what we wanted to really focus on is what I call impact and accessibility. There's a lot of people that in their wildest imagination would not dream of going into a historical museum because of any number of reasons. It's too academic, too geeky, whatever.
They might think it's boring.
It's boring, right? You know, and that's not just true in Detroit. That's true everywhere.
Sure.
So we wanted to kind of broaden the base of interest. We wanted to focus on some local legends. We wanted to focus on some contemporary history. So the Alasey Gallery of Culture, which is generously sponsored by Maggie and Bob Alasey, is really looks at the last 100 years in a lot of detail, but from the things that I say make Detroit Detroit: music, sports, architecture, design, media.
You know, you mentioned Alasey, Maggie and Bob, and these are a couple of folks that have been around seemingly forever, supporting many, many things. On the other hand, you've got Kid Rock, who's also stepped up, put a lot of money in his Kid Rock Foundation, and gave us some beautiful things added to the museum now.
Absolutely. It's, you know, one of the things that so many people say, boy, we love Detroit's music. We love the history of Detroit music. And in the Kid Rock Music Lab, and Kid Rock made a very generous gift to the Detroit Historical Society, we'll be looking at the last 100 years of music in Detroit, from gospel to jazz to hip-hop to rock and roll garage bands to old school to Kid Rock and Eminem. And it's really very fascinating. It is the experience you would never expect to have in the museum. It's behind these very cool glass doors that almost vibrate until you open them and go inside. And it's a real visual experience that people will enjoy.
And we've all been a part of the Detroit Historical Society Past Forward campaign. And again, another important way for us to contribute to Detroit.
It really is, and it's part of our focus in terms of investing in our communities, and this way we get to invest in the heritage of Detroit. But I think your point earlier is really well taken. I mean, you have people like Maggie who, you know, quite frankly, her energy level knows no bounds. I see her everywhere. And you combine that, you know, really with Kid Rock and all the great things he's doing. But I think that Kid Rock aspect is what's going to draw some, maybe not the usual museum goers into the museum, and so it's really important.
I agree, Rick, and you know, we have some other really interesting things in the Alasey Gallery of Culture. We have a parade head, for example. People are enamored with these ideas of the parade head. So we have one of the original ones, handcrafted in Italy, that has been used in the parade for decades. And we also have some footage from the Thanksgiving Day Parade of 1928, as well as from 1970. So a lot of the things that really make people very proud and engaged in the community. We've got one of the original Little Caesars guys that you saw in front of the Little Caesars pizza treat from years ago. So big, large-scale artifacts that really, I think, all together tell the story of the community.
Can't help but bring back a flood of warm emotions for those of us who experienced that. But for people who are new to the area also, it gives them a very quick shot in the arm of background and information that helps them better understand Detroit.
Well, absolutely. You know, one of the other galleries that we have are two other new galleries, brand new galleries. One is the Arsenal of Democracy, Detroit's role in World War II. Fascinating story. I learned so much through that one, is what Detroit did to help win World War II, and the impact of World War II on Detroit and how this community developed. There's great alignment with school tours. We have a new exhibit also on the Doorway to Freedom. Great alignment with school tours. And then our third newest exhibit is the Gallery of Innovation. And we look at people like Henry Ford, of course, and Albert Kahn. But we also have a featured welcome video from Josh Linkner, who is, you know, in many ways defines innovation in Detroit today.
Yeah, the new Detroit,
new
if you will,
right.
Innovation, and calling upon what was in the past. And it's the right thing for our museum to do, for the overall Detroit Historical Society to do, because let's face it, we've all heard the expression, the Arsenal of Democracy, but we haven't really seen that if we didn't grow up during that time. And it's still very much a part of our the very fabric of Detroit and the surrounding area.
Absolutely. And, you know, we have these are permanent major investments. We've raised a lot of money to put these together, but we're still very committed to keeping the exhibits fresh. And one of the things in our community gallery is an opportunity to showcase local organizations that have really been important to the community. And actually, that's supported by PNC for the opening exhibit, and that is The Power of Hope, the story of Focus Hope, and the incredible story of Eleanor Jositis and Father Cunningham and what that organization has done for this community, and just as all the exhibits tell what's happened, also link it to the future.
Well, good for you. Tell us a little bit more about that. Again, right in your DNA, Ric DeVore, the fact that you would grab a hold of the power of hope and focus in, no pun intended, focus in on Focus Hope.
Well, I think, when you think of Focus Hope, they've done such a great job for so long. I think it's great to memorialize that, and I think a lot of us did with her passing. But with that said, it's just so important. You and I have talked before, Paul. You think about, for instance, the average household income of most of the parents of DPS students. We talked about it when we had Roy Roberts on.
Right.
But 67% of those children are living in at or near poverty level, as defined as a family of four, 20,000 or less. Well, you think about Focus Hope and what they do and why that is so important. It's kind of who we are, and I think if you aren't familiar with them and you go to the museum and you see that, I think that really resonates with people, and hopefully more people participate and give to organizations like that.
Was there ever a question, as you were working on this for 10 years, for goodness sakes, and the reopening now of the museum and everything that you've done, was there ever a question, Bob Burry, of not hitting that grand reopening date of November 23rd? Tell the truth.
Well, you can ask my wife about how much I've been home lately. And
Mary Ann is saying, where is Bob?
Yes,
anyway?
Absolutely. But
poor Meredith up at U of M saying, I thought being in Ann Arbor, Dad would come visit all the time.
I even had to turn down tickets to the football game because I couldn't go. But it's been a lot of work, and we've got a great team. The one of the major transformations of the Historical Society and the staff is it is smaller than it was 15 years ago, before, when it was run under a different governance model. But we really have a tremendous commitment of our staff and a lot of great partners, friends from Wayne State, friends from U of M, that have helped us with the intellectual content, as well as the other cultural institutions as well. Because what this town doesn't need is any duplicative efforts. You need to have a unique effort that's going to move the ball forward.
Well, especially when you need to raise money,
Right.
and because there's a lot of people out there looking for money for very good causes. And there's a limited number of people who might be in a position to help them with that. So they have to really pay attention to where the money's going. And the major contributors you've talked a little bit about, and certainly PNC has been a very major contributor, Ric. And I know that you get asked by a lot of different organizations to participate. This one seems to make great sense for you.
Oh, it really does. And we take a real careful look at who else is participating. We talked about Maggie, but in addition, the Nicholson family is very prevalent.
Absolutely.
With the Historical Society. One that we pay a lot of attention to these things, and I don't think Jim tends to get involved in things that don't make a lot of sense, and so that's just another feather in Robert's cap. Now I'm sitting here next to him, wondering why he's not wearing coveralls or something like that. He's supposed to be working. But getting back to the arsenal of democracy, it is November, and it is Veterans Day is in November, and I think, while I'm real excited about things like Josh Link there, because that gets us the path to the future.
Sure.
We also have an aging veteran corps of World War II,
Right.
and they're passing away
Every
every
day.
day. And it's so important to be able to demonstrate to these kids what we did here, how we transformed making automobiles into airplanes. And so I love this ability to link the past with the present, and quite honestly, the idea of having Josh there is pretty much brilliant, because again, I think it gets people into the museum that maybe it wasn't on the radar before.
You talk about getting people into the museum. I kind of use two words of hands-on and hands-in. Hands-on, the new exhibits have a lot of interactivity. There's in the Gallery of Innovation you were just speaking about, Ric, there's an opportunity to solve a problem using computer-based technology. That's how kids do it today. And the hands-in comment is one of our outdoor attractions outside in front of the museum. We have now 26 sets of legendary Detroiters, hands cast in concrete. So this is a outdoor attraction in front of the museum, including our esteemed host here, Paul W. Smith.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, have you come up with an easy way to get this dried cement off your hands? I'm just wondering.
Still a little on your ring there.
Yeah, I just wondering. I was honored to be included in that grouping, and I know everybody who was asked to be in there and the people in the future that will be asked to be in there are touched by that. But it does give an opportunity as you come into the place to start to get a feel for what's going on.
And being in Midtown, you're next to Ted Lindsay and Lily Tomlin and Al Kaline and Martha Reeves and other folks as well, famous Detroiters in, again, sports, media, entertainment that are getting the word out there. And being in Midtown, we view it as a piece of public art as well, which really enhances the neighborhood. The other piece, I think, in terms of getting people to see the story is when we reopen, we will have a free admission policy. So we're going to encourage you to leave a donation, but we're really about access, and we're really about people that are intimidated. Maybe they want to see if their hands are bigger than Al Kaline's, and then they could come in for free as well and experience the rest.
I just want to make mention, I used my small hands for my impression in this event. I don't know what I'm saying, but
just for the record.
Just for the record, November 23rd, the opening, when everything with the big gala and the big opening and all of that underway, you must have done pretty well then. You were looking for $20 million, I think, in the Past Forward campaign. You must have done pretty well if you're able to open and no longer charge admission. Now, again, you will happily accept donations, but how do you keep this thing going?
Well, it's an ongoing campaign, and the campaign covers the renovations that's planned for the Dawson Great Lakes Museum as well, which will take place over this winter. So we're at about $16 million of our $20 million campaign. We've had to take some of our savings out of our PNC account to fund our construction so far, but one of the things we wanted to do is fulfill this project without borrowing money. And so that when we're completed our project, we will have a sustainable model that will ensure the continuity of the organization going forward.
And we point out again, Bob Burry of the Detroit Historical Society, the executive director and CEO, overseeing the Detroit Historical Museum, the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, and the Collections Resource Center, which we've mentioned, but we wanted to reiterate that. And tell me about the Collections Resource Center. I'm the least familiar with that idea.
It's a fascinating, large warehouse located in a nondescript area of the city. And in that warehouse, we have about 60 automobiles, rare and unique cars that are safely secured in bubbles to keep them away of plastic bubbles and air circulating around them, to keep them secure and safe from the elements. We have literally thousands of historic artifacts, from political buttons to costumes to boats to ammunition to Native American artifacts. And the idea here, Paul, is that most museums display or show between 5 and 10% of what they have in their collection. And some of the things in our collection may never see the light of day, but a lot of them do. And both in our museums, as well as we have cars on display all around the world. We have a great collection of paintings. Some of the most beautiful paintings at the Detroit Athletic Club.
It sounds like you could open this up as a whole other museum.
Well, you could, and we do that on we do selected tours and people that are particularly interested. But it's not the type that you say, well, go have a good time. You need to be very careful with these things because they're delicate, and we take the appropriate and proper care.
Well, you mentioned DNA of PNC, and the artifacts is in our DNA. Every time we've made a major bank acquisition, we have cataloged some of the artifacts of that institution. The most spectacular was our acquisition of Riggs Bank in Washington, which is the bank of presidents, the bank that financed the Louisiana Purchase.
Wow.
And had basically signature cards from every president going back into the 1820s, if you will. We had Smithsonian they cataloged what we had, we displayed it for the public, and then we donated all that to the Smithsonian in Washington. So I suppose that's a good example of these kinds of things are in our DNA, because while you want to move on, you always have to preserve the history.
Well, I will say
it's really important.
You know what? Good for you, because not everybody does that. And Bob would know that better than anyone. Not everybody understands the significance, the historical significance of, in a sense, modern day artifacts that go by the wayside, are lost forever. So good for you.
Yeah, it's really important, I think, to preserve that past, and it's really important in our case for our employees, because the institution that you acquire doesn't want to feel like they're completely faceless, and if you will, or nameless, and they want to see some kind of link back to their past. So it's really important.
On a personal note, a business personal note, this radio station that's been around for 90 years had, for example, a record library that Gene Elza used to be in charge of. And 3 owners ago, they got rid of all those records. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what we would give to get back just that record library and what history it held and the stories that you could tell from those, what we used to call albums, all of that stack of vinyl. And over the weekend, what do I see? But somebody is offering, I think it's J&R Music or someplace, the entire Beatles collection on vinyl. Vinyl records back with, in this case, the entire Beatles collection. So everything keeps coming back around like that. But good for PNC to see something like that in something as simple as taking over a bank and grasping that history and sharing it through the Smithsonian in that case, because you're in Washington with that.
Right.
And no wonder it makes good sense for you to be so involved with the Detroit Historical Society and with the Detroit Public Schools and everything else that you're doing.
Well,
how do you have time doing all these good things to run a bank? That's what I want to know.
Well, it's also my way, multitasking and having good people. It's also my way of linking back into my heritage. I said that earlier, but I graduated from high school with Bob's wife, Mary Ann.
Really?
So, yep, we're both same class, and so that's a neat thing. And I was thinking to myself, Detroit Historical Society, Dearborn High School. Is there any coincidence here? DHS? I don't know.
She must
just
have,
a coincidence.
She must have been a child prodigy because she's so much younger than you.
I was wondering how you're going to work that in.
Well done, Paul. Well done.
I'm working here. Well, it's all good, and it all continues to be one of our now jewels back again. If you take a look at what the Detroit Historical Society is doing, even new to me, the Collections Resource Center and wherever that might end up, but of course the Detroit Historical Museum, the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, and all of that with the society established in 1921, as Bob Murray mentioned earlier, and he's responsible for the overall strategic direction, management, the operations of all of these places, and also in the fundraising. That's always just a big part of your job. It's never just running the place, it's making sure that you have the fuel to keep it running.
That's been a big part of it, and it's been, it's interesting. There are many of our donors these days that once, if you can get their attention and talk to them, they are very interested in the rebirth and renewal that's going on all around us. And there's no better way, in my opinion, to invest in that and to ensure that continuity than to help us preserve that history and link it to the future. And that's really what we try to do here. In the accessibility, we've expanded our hours. Now we're open Tuesday through Sunday. And on that opening weekend, for folks that are planning, thinking about that, we're going to be open for 55 consecutive hours. So the day after Thanksgiving, after that parade at 9:30 in the morning, we'll be open nonstop till 5 o'clock Sunday night. So if you want to come in at 2 o'clock after a visit to the bar, you're welcome to do that.
Wait a second. Bob.
It was going so well.
God bless you. I don't think you want to. Did you see Link Beshert, one of our top account executives, his eyes lit up. He goes, hey, I'll be done with hockey. We'll go to the bar. The guys, we have a little cookout in the parking lot. Hey, let's go to the Detroit Historical Society.
And we're going to be showing movies all night, too. Detroit-based movies from RoboCop and others' favorites.
Throw in a hockey film, and he's there.
All right.
Well, that's great. And it's all positive, and you couldn't do these sorts of things, and including that's 55 hours, as you say, and from this point on, free admission, which makes it accessible to everyone. You couldn't do it without the help of people, in fact, like Ric DeVore at PNC.
That's right. That's right. PNC's been a great partner, both philanthropically as well as professionally. We went through an exhaustive RFP for our investment management services, and with a very qualified committee of our board of trustees, and we found that PNC really gave us the best proposal. And more than anything else that moved it in their favor was they really wanted it. They really looked at the Detroit Historical Society as a fairly modest organization when you look at the whole sphere of nonprofits and business, but we're really committed to helping to move us forward.
Well, I can tell you from sitting in this seat, co-hosting the PNC Roundtable with the regional president, Ric DeVore, this is not just something that they just throw out there and do. This truly is something that is a part of their belief system as to what one of their responsibilities is in the communities they serve.
No, it's really true. It's well stated, and that's what makes this job fun, quite frankly.
Well, fun for you, too, to come back home.
Oh, yeah.
It can't get any better than that.
No, it's about as good as it gets
Yeah.
for me. No doubt about it.
And since you're originally from here, you can call it Sanders or Saunders. It doesn't matter.
I'm going with Sanders.
I think Sanders is where it is.
My friend Bob told me Sanders.
Yeah, Sanders is the consensus.
I
Yes.
think Sanders is.
Yes.
But look, we went through Michiganian and Michigander.
Right.
Yeah.
Until our governor started saying Michigander. And that kind of made all of us say, well, we better say Michigander. But there are a lot of those things like that.
Now, doesn't the governor have some connection to Dearborn High School, too?
That he does.
Oh, come on.
Yes, he does.
His wife graduated with Mary Ann and I from the class of 74, Dearborn High.
This is getting to be a little.
I know.
Sue went to the same high school.
It was Sue Kerr at that time, but as Mary Ann and I did.
Another child prodigy.
Another child prodigy must have been
quite a-
way
quite
ahead
a
of her
class.
time. Did anyone really achieve anything in that class? Seems like they did. Seems like they
Good
did.
group.
Might be the subject of a next roundtable. Dearborn alumni or something.
It might be.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, there you are.
like that idea.
You wondered how these ideas came about. You
There you
thought
go.
Sean thought of all of them. But Sean's so busy being the mayor now of Grosse Pointe.
So I hear.
Yeah.
You just wanted to buy your house. That's it.
I asked him to buy my house in Grosse Pointe and turn it into City Hall. I don't think that's going to happen. Link, you're a real estate magnate. Come on. But anyway, this is all good. We've all been around a long while, a time when things, we couldn't laugh about anything in Detroit. Now we're laughing and happy. But there's a lot of work to continue to keep things like this. All three of these, well, the two that matter to us out there, out and about, the Detroit Historical Museum and the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, they continue with their Past Forward campaign. It's important to keep it funded. And how do people listening in right now to our PNC Roundtable actually, besides going there, and if you want to make a donation, even though it's going to be free admission, but how else can people get involved and maybe help out if they can?
Well, there's a lot of ways. You can become a member. You can participate in our campaign. The Dawson Great Lakes Museum you mentioned, Paul, is will be closing in December. We'll be reopening on May 17th. So with another gala, of course. But I want to mention that another great philanthropic family, John and Marlene Bull, have made a leadership gift to the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, which will transform that place, which I believe, just like the Detroit Historical Museum, is finally at the right place at the right time. With what's going to be happening at Belle Isle with transitional improvements, I think it'll really be a great asset and create that same kind of synergy with the aquarium and the conservatory and ourselves, all in that same neighborhood and a great location on the river.
Are you going to ask me to MC that opening as well? Because I'm getting filled up with these openings, so you got to let me know ahead of time.
I'll talk to Kim.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So what does it cost? What is the boss? What does it cost to become a member? And is it do you become a member of the Detroit Historical Society or a member of the museum, or how does that work?
You become a member of the society, and that gives you access, of course, to both locations. But with free admission, the real advantage of being a member is being part of helping us move forward and sustain and keep that free admission policy. But it also gives you access to the digitized portion of our collection. We talked about the Collections Resource Center. So if you become a family member at $65, that enables you to look at the most interesting things in our collection digitally, online, and if you'd like, print them off, or to do some additional research that you get an accessibility through the website to get that.
$65 is it? For a family membership?
That's a starting level membership, yes.
And a boatload of pride.
Absolutely.
That comes along with helping out.
Absolutely. And that's, when we find our members support us for that reason. They want to be part of moving Detroit forward, and in some cases remembering Detroit how it was, but also connecting how it was with what it can be in the future.
We should never forget our past.
Absolutely.
And
right.
That's how we started this program, and that's how we end this program, Rick. And clearly at PNC, you celebrate the past of your organization and organizations that you take over. Is it, by the way, DetroitHistorical.org?
DetroitHistorical.org, or if you'd like to make a call, it's 313-833-1805.
Okay, 313-833-1805 or DetroitHistorical.org.
Great website, lots of info.
All right, and again, as we began, we end.
Oh, absolutely. This is it's really a treat for us to be involved with organizations like this that are, like I think it was well said, preserving the past but also moving forward. I think, again, going back to Josh Link there, and I think there's something here for everybody, not just history geeks like me, which I love history. Realized in college wasn't maybe a living I could make out
maybe
of that.
Not.
Maybe not.
Good that you realize
but,
that.
It took me a while, but I finally caught on. But with that said, it's that link to the future that I think is so important and which makes us, quite frankly, a little bit different than a lot of museums.
Which is why we salute you, Bob Bury, and wanted to have you here on our PNC Roundtable. Bob, responsible for the overall strategic direction, management, and operations of the Detroit Historical Museum, the Dawson Great Lakes Museum, and the Collection Resource Center. And congratulations to you on the job well done in the 10 years that you've been doing this now, 10 years and counting.
Yes, thank you, Paul. We certainly I appreciate those compliments and appreciate the partnership that we have with WJR and with PNC.
Well, and we appreciate the partnership we have with PNC as well, and the regional president, Ric DeVore, who makes this possible, our PNC Roundtable, which means we get to meet lots of important people that are doing good work in Detroit.
Absolutely, and you are been a great partner for us. You always are, WJR, and I think it's really symbolic of the city, actually, where we're sitting in the Fisher Building. It's kind of ironic.
It is.
We have Bob here. Really.
All right. Should I be a great Albert Kahn building like this? Should I now be ready for the Dearborn High School reunion tour?
I think get the governor to show up.
Coming up.
There you go.
I know we could have them all here on the PNC Roundtable. Until next time, I'll talk to you in the morning from 5:30 till 9. Regards, Paul W. Smith.